Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Ramadan Storytime with Sister Marsha. I am so glad that you can join me yet again for another one of our Ramadan Storytime sessions. We are still in the month of Ramadan. I hope that it is going well for you. We're in the last 10 days, so it will be leaving us shortly, but it's been such a wonderful experience thus far. I'm thrilled that you allow me to read these stories to you. And without further ado, we are going to jump into tonight's story. Tonight's story comes to us again from the My Quran Storybook series, and this one is titled The Cruel King Drowns. My first Quran storybook, the best treasured stories from the Quran. And these stories are published by Good Word Books, and the author is Sunny Yasmin Khan. The Cruel King Drowns. The Prophet Musa, alayhi salam, and remember from our previous stories, we learned that that means upon him be peace. The Prophet Musa and his people lived in Egypt, but the king of Egypt was very cruel and mean to them. He did not believe in Allah, and he did not like people who prayed to Allah. So he troubled the Prophet Musa and his people day and night. He told his ministers and soldiers, "Be rude to them." Musa, alayhi salam, was a prophet. He loved Allah, and Allah loved him too. Every time there was a problem, the Prophet Musa asked Allah for help, and Allah told him what to do. And so, remember in our previous stories, we have been learning about the Prophet Musa, but we also learned about this cool king named Pharaoh. And so I think we're going to learn a little bit more about him today, but let's turn the page and see what happens. One day, Allah said to the Prophet Musa, "Travel by night with my servants." And you see some traveling going on in the picture. We see some sheep and some cow and even some camel. The Prophet Musa called his people and said, "Pack your things and get ready. We are going away from Egypt, but nobody must know about it, and nobody should see us. We leave at night." They left at night. There were many of them, and among them there were many women and children. The women and children walked very slowly and got tired very quickly. And so imagine that you had to leave Egypt and have to travel either walking or either even if you were on a camel, just to have to travel a long distance. I'm sure that you can imagine how tiring that could be, especially for children. This is why the caravan did not move very fast. In the morning, they reached the shore of the sea. It was then that they saw some people following them. They were moving very fast. It was Pharaoh and his soldiers. Oh no. They had camels and horses, and soon they would catch up to them. What do you think is going to happen next? Pharaoh is after Moses and his people. Let's turn the page and discover. Allah came to their help. He said to Musa, "Strike the sea with your rod." As soon as the rod touched the waves, a miracle happened. The waters parted, the waves hung in midair and did not fall. They did not fall down. The sandy bottom could be seen. Allah made a path for them to cross the sea. Imagine that. Imagine that you came to the sea and you had all of these soldiers coming after you and you didn't know what to do. And Allah said, hit the water with your stick. And all of a sudden the water parts. That's pretty amazing, right? And that's why we call it a miracle. So Allah was creating a pathway for them to get away. Let's see what happened. Here we see them at the seashore. And we see waves of water. We see horses. I wonder what's happening here. Let's find out. Musa and his people hurried between the walls of water. Pharaoh and his soldiers were right behind. But as soon as Musa and his people crossed the sea, the waves fell down. They fell down on Pharaoh and his soldiers. All of them drowned in the waves. None of them were saved. Allah is mighty and powerful. He helps those who love him and pray to him. He saves those who trust him. And so that is our story for this evening. Thank you so much for joining me for tonight's story. Again, these stories come to us from the My First Quran Storybook series. Tonight's story was entitled The Cruel King Drowns, and we learned about what happened to the Pharaoh or the King Pharaoh. Him and his people were after Moses, but because Moses was a faithful servant of Allah, Allah made a way for him and his people to get away, and for the cruel king, Pharaoh, who did not have good intentions, for destruction to come to him and his people, and as a result, they drowned. So thank you so much for joining me for tonight's story. I appreciate you so much for allowing me to read these stories to you. I hope you have a great evening. I hope that your Ramadan continues to be a blessed one. We have a few days left, and I hope that they're great for you. In the meantime, I hope to see you back here tomorrow for our next Ramadan Storytime session with Sister Marsha. Assalamu alaikum, Ramadan Mubarak, and have a great night. See you next time.